Yes. Yes. Recording
All
now.
right.
Driving. Yes, I need to be more articulate now.
Yeah, no problem. All right. So, yeah, we have Damien Henning. Am I saying that right? With the Fairway Sun Hat by Shapeflexer.
Exactly right. Yes, that's me.
Awesome. So, yeah, we're going to start off this interview. We're going to have kind of 3 different sections here. And they're going to be like product specific questions, crowdfunding and business related questions, and then a few personal questions at the end. And so just get right into it. In the video, we actually noticed that you had mentioned that it's both lightweight and wind resistant. How did you manage to achieve this balance with this hat?
Oh, it was not easy. It's something that everybody wanted. I just thought it was impossible, like trying to invent a perpetual motion machine. I thought, what's the point? But then I thought, there's got to be a way I can make it. Now, it's not lightweight compared to like a hat you make out of newspaper or, a cheap ball cap you buy at a Cubs game or something. It's just lighter compared to the other fairway sun hats. But it weighs comparable to a lot of the bigger sun hats in the market, like a Tilly or the sunny day afternoons, and it's comparable to those. A tiny bit heavier than those, but compared to the other bladed shape flexors I made, it weighs light as a feather. Now, I was able to achieve that by just a lot of little things added up. I made the foam a little bit thinner. It used to be 4 millimeter, now it's about 2.5 millimeter, but it's a more resilient foam. I'm working with a new factory now, which is why it's going to take so long to fulfill people. I've got some complaints about why am I not going to get fulfilled until early next year. One thing I'm thinking, well, it's going to be winter until I fulfill you, so you probably won't need a sun hat that much in the winter and early spring. And second of all, I've got the new factory, and there's always bumps when you start with a new factory. And their time frame is their time frame. I want to over deliver and under promise and over deliver as opposed to over promise and under deliver.
Of course.
So I got the wind. I made the foam thinner. I no longer have a copper cable in the brim, which was the biggest cause for the massive weight of the first one. That's what the only difference between the first Shapeflexer and the Shapeflexer Light was the Light didn't have the copper inside. I made a few other minor changes, but basically it was the same hat.
Yeah, that's actually one of our questions. We had noticed that in the video, it had mentioned the tightly sewn in insulated steel. And so you actually changed it from the copper, but
yes. Steel, and the steel, having it be so, why I used the copper was because you could bend it hundreds of times before it would break.
That's exactly what we were going to ask about. Yep.
And with this one, because I say tightly sewn, it's not like a specific type of steel. It's tightly sewn into the actual brim of the hat. The fabric, the nylon around the hat is so tightly sewn that you can't. It's very difficult to bend it at a completely flush angle like that.
Gotcha.
When you bend it, it'll maintain sort of a U shape, so you won't get that stress on the wire. It'll be much more gentle on the wire, and I've done some stress tests with it, and it definitely holds up comparable to what the copper did. And it's much lighter. And by having it, if it wasn't tightly sewn in, then people fold it up, which I want people to do. I want people to fold it up, put it in their pocket, put it in their bag, put it in their purse, whatever, put it in their cooler. If they want, that'd be a good way to say, cool, put your hat in your cooler, and then it's really most hats don't fit in a cooler. I should have put that in the video. I just thought of that. Anyway, I could have gotten together with the coolest guy. No, he's Kickstarter poison. I don't want it. And, I'm not going to do what he did. I'm not going to not fund people or not fulfill people. Anyway, yes, the wire, because it's sewn in so tightly, and this is something I specifically haven't done at the factory. It won't bend so hard and really cause that harsh stress on the cable. Like if you take any cable and you bend it really, if somebody folds it with a pair of pliers every time
it won't snap due to material fatigue, right?
Yes. Or if it does, it'll take several years to do so. And and another way I made it lighter was it's also a little smaller in diameter. It's maybe 10% smaller in diameter, which doesn't sound like much. Most dermatologists recommend sun hat that's at least 3 inches from the crown point to the edge of the brim. And on the original Shapeflexer, I had like 3.5 to 3 3/4. It was really just meant to be protection, like a shelter on your head. But it made some people like think it was just too heavy, too cumbersome, too big and bulky, and certainly not good for golf or tennis.
Yeah, like a sombrero.
Yes, a lot of people said it's like wearing a sombrero. I said, well, sombreros do actually protect your head pretty well from the sun. But yeah, but people aren't, you know, if you have a choice to go out in a day between a ball cap and a big Mexican sombrero, you're going to throw a ball cap on just because it's easier. You're going to say, I'll take a little bit of sun. I'll put some sunscreen on too, and blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, I wanted it to be a little more comfortable because I'd rather have people wear mine 9 times out of 10 than wear the original Shapeflexer 4 times out of 10 because of comfort and practicality. So the new one is still that magic spot of 3 inch. I'm not going to make any smaller than that. I'm not going to make any sun hats smaller than this because then they'd be like bowler hats and they'd be useless. Or those little fisherman bucket frat boy hats that just come out to here, like a little Gilligan hat. They don't do anything. I'm always amused me to see people wear those as sun protection, think they're getting sun protection, and when they're not, they're just looking like fools. But maybe it's a fashion statement. I don't know. A bucket will protect the top of your head if you don't have any hair there, but it won't protect your face, your neck. So anyway, yeah, that's so between the smaller diameter, thinner brim, lack of copper, and a thinner fabric. I'm using a thinner nylon. It's also a bit silkier and smoother too. It actually feels a lot more like silk than the original Shapeflexer. It feels a little bit gritty like sandpaper. This newer one feels much silkier, but it's still every bit as strong.
Yeah, I was noticing that was kind of one of our questions. Between
all those things, I was able to make it as light as possible, but still being very wind resistant. More wind resistant than the Shapeflexer Light, in fact. Just as wind resistant as the original Shapeflexer, classic copper version.
Wow, awesome. So yeah, is there any other materials that it was in? That was one of our questions was, you know, like what type of material is it made out of that makes it actually waterproof and machine washable?
Well, okay, well, I got to get one thing straight. Now, I tried to make this clear in comment sections and everything. When I say waterproof, it's waterproof in the sense that it will not damage the usability as a sun hat. If you want to use it as a rain hat, it won't keep your head totally dry. But if you have it in a torrential downpour, even a small waterfall, as you saw in my video under the shower, the brim won't fold or buckle. But it's not waterproof in the sense it'll keep your head and hair dry. Like you wouldn't want to wear a rain hat as sun protection because your head would sweat like crazy. Yeah. There's no ventilation. They're heavy. They're thick rubber. This is not going to keep your head totally dry. It'll keep your face dry for several minutes before eventually the water will seep through and start to drip a little bit. But you know your hair will get wet before your face does. So, but it won't affect the usability of a sun hat. Like you could be swimming in a lake, dive underwater to pick up something you dropped, and come right back up with a sun hat on it. The shape will be the same, and that's all because of the wire in the brim and the stiffer foam that I'm using now, and the wire that's in the brim. I'm using a type of foam called UVA, and I forget what it stands for, but you can Google it. But the wire in the brim is coated with a tiny bit of rubber, and so that actually keeps it from rusting. And at the connection point, you know, because it's not a total ring I'm putting in, like it's a piece of wire that they have to connect. They keep the metallic parts completely airtight away from water and air, so it won't rust.
Wow. Okay. Awesome.
So that's how I was able to keep the shape and have it be machine washable and have it. Sometimes you put a sun hat in a washing machine, it's never the same. It's always droopy and warpy and up. I'd done that many years myself, and that's one of the reasons I invented the first Shapeflexer, because I was so sick of buying new sun hats all the damn time.
No, I actually was going to say the same thing. I actually have a fear of sun cancer. I actually had a spot removed off of my chest. And so like when I go out, I'm in here in Florida. And so always on the boat, at the beach, you know, and so like I'm always have a hat on. See, I don't even have any hair up here to protect my head. So, you know, a hat is a must. And, you know, this thing is, you know, right up my alley. Like,
great. Yeah. I also made the vent mesh. The vent mesh in the original Shapeflexers The holes were a little bit bigger and they let in a little bit of sun. The new vent mesh lets in virtually no sun, and it's every bit as ventilating as the first one. So that's another change I made in this version. And I mentioned that quickly in the video, but I tried to pack in so much in the video. The first cut of the video was 6.5 minutes long. I had to cut it down, break up little other parts and put them in the campaign page to make the video 3.5 minutes, a more palatable length. And yeah, I almost died from skin cancer myself. I don't know if you know that, but yeah, in 2019, I was having seizures that I had brain tumors that they found out later metastasized from skin cancer. But I digress.
Well, we're glad you're here so that you could create the hat for all of us.
Yeah. One of the things I was thinking is if I get over this, I'm going to make the best sun hat, and something that'll blow the first Shapeflexer out of the water. That's what I'm hoping this one is. Well, I know this one is, but I'm hoping everyone else agrees with me.
So yeah, one last question about the actual product. Is there anything that you found that like people don't quite understand about the hat that you want to make sure that they know?
I guess just the waterproofness. It won't keep your head dry. It's waterproof in the sense that a dive watch is waterproof. It's not going to keep your wrist dry, but the water, submerging it in water won't affect it at all. Sunscreen, waterproof sunscreen is not going to keep your whole body dry, but it won't affect how it protects you from the sun. Earbuds, waterproof earbuds, they're not going to keep your ears dry or even the inside of your ears dry, but they won't or hurt or affect the usage of the earbuds. That's what I mean when I say the sun hat is waterproof. That the shape won't bend, it won't warp, and you can machine wash it, you can submerge it, it'll be fine, and it dries pretty quickly too.
Yeah, I think that's a great feature because, like I said, I wear a lot of hats, and there's nothing worse than getting the hat wet and then having basically a droopy sun hat, all day that you have to wear.
They might be a little moist, but if it's a hot day, a little cool, moist sweatband might feel good for a few minutes, and it'll dry. And especially in the sun, it dries real quick. Even inside an air-conditioned house, it dries within a few hours if you just hang it up somewhere.
Awesome. Yeah. Can you touch on one thing? Kind of interesting. I've noticed this when I wear a lot of my hats. You get like when you sweat in it, you get like a sweat ring on the hat. Does this happen with that hat, or does it have anything?
Yeah. I made this. The first version is white, so that version you won't see the sweat rings. They'll be there, but you won't see them because the sweat rings will be white. And the hat is white. But also the downside of a white hat is it starts to look dirty.
Yeah.
Even if it is more dirty, it'll look dirty much quicker. And also golfers, I really wanted to appeal to golfers with this one. And golfers prefer to have white everything. White hats, white shoes, white socks, white pants, white hair. I don't know. But so golfers, it seems to be a tradition with golfers to have a white hat. So I just thought I'd make the base one of this white to separate it, put it aside from the other version, the Shapeflexers, because this is not a Shapeflexer. It has a lot of similarities, but I want to make it very clear it's not Shapeflexer Part 3. It is there's the two Shapeflexers and the Fairway. They do overlap a little bit, but they're different hats. And sorry, your original question was about
just the sweat mark, and you kind of answered it. So
it's going to be there. And being nylon, taking a wet rag, if you don't want to put it in the washing machine, which is as easy as it is, it'll take you a couple hours to do a cycle and then to dry it in the dryer or let it drip dry. I would just take a damp rag and it comes off real fast, even on our darker colors.
Awesome, cool. So without further ado, we'll go right into a little bit more about the actual crowdfunding campaign, and then a little bit more about your business model and stuff. So you kind of touched on it a little bit in the very beginning, where you had mentioned that you moved the manufacturing base from China to India. And what were the reasons why you made this move? And can you tell us a little bit more about the supplier and why you chose them?
Yeah. Well, I didn't want to make things in China anymore. I would have liked to have mentioned all this in the video, but it was too long as it was.
Yeah, of course.
Political reasons. I don't like. I spent a lot of time in China. The Chinese people are wonderful. What their government's doing to the Uyghur population, it just turns my stomach, and I can't give any more money into that economy than absolutely necessary. So I did not want to make things there anymore. That was the biggest reason. In fact, Indian backers and India and China have even had more friction than the U.S. and China.
Wow.
Indian backers manufacturers saying, why are you making your hat in China? It's a terrible place, blah, blah, blah. I'll buy it now because I really want it, but please stop. Make it anywhere other than China. Make it in Thailand or Taiwan or Nepal, but don't make it in China anymore. So, and a couple other, European backers said that too. Yeah, I don't like buying things made in China, but everything's made in China these days. I mean, the shirt I'm wearing was probably made in China. It's hard to avoid, but I just thought that I don't want to do that. And also, considering we've had a bit of a tumultuous, tempestuous relationship with them as far as trade goes, if Trump is reelected, the tariff might come back, and they might charge high tariffs on our stuff too. And the whole tariff situation, like the tariff when I was fulfilling the light was at the highest point. It cost me a lot of extra money, which was annoying, but what am I going to do? The price, and I still had to fulfill everybody. And I just bit the bullet and coughed up the tariff. But I just thought with India, with a very good relationship, the current president, the current whole government is very pro-US, pro-West. And also in China, I always had to deal with a middleman. And because I don't speak Mandarin, in India, everybody speaks English. In fact, it was the official language until 1976 when Hindi became the official language. So in India, a vast majority of people speak English, especially people in the business world, the owners of the factories, the production managers, the designers, all of them speak English just as well as you and I. So the English speaking was a big reason I wanted to have it there. Then that way I can deal directly with the factory. In China, I did not deal directly with the factory. I tried to deal directly with the factory a couple times and have a personal translator, but they made real garbage. With the first factory I used, I had to remake my productions of several hundred hats. Wow. I spent 4 months in China, finding the right factory. I used 4 factories before I found the first 3 didn't work out. Number 4 worked, but the catch with number 4 is I had to use a middleman. But I pay a higher price. But at that point, I was just so happy to have one that actually made quality products. I was like, okay, I'll use the middleman, whatever. So it's cheaper to make them in China, so I can charge less money. These will probably retail for $50. My Shapeflexers retailed for $60, and they might go up to $65 or $70 if I keep selling them, just because it's getting so expensive to make in China. And another reason is I have more of a rapport with India personally. I've spent a lot of time there. Maybe I know more of their mentality, and I know what's important to them. And I've spent a total of now 9 months in India, and as most of the time as a traveler, maybe a small percent of that time for business. This last time I was there, I was there for 4 of those months. No, 3. Yeah, I was there for about 3 months this last time, 3.5 months. Spending time looking for a factory. And even in India, I went to 3 factories before I found the good one. And I was the first 2 were in Tamil Nadu, which is in the southern part of the country. And the last one was in the north in Punjab, which is right on the border of Pakistan. So the other side of the country. So I was really crisscross the country trying to find the best factory, because I didn't want to use a factory until the sample was just like awesome. Because I did not want to put my name. I spent a long time building up my reputation. I wasn't going to jeopardize it by taking a quick way, just like my first, this example is good enough. I'm sure we'll make it better. Okay, you guys are good. I had to disappoint in the first 2 factories a lot, because they say, hey, where did you go? And I had to say, well, I didn't want to say, you made crap and I don't want to use you. I just decided it's not a good fit for right now. Somebody else, sorry. So I use these guys in Punjab, and they make a lot of hats. They've never made a hat just like this. In fact, that's why it took me a while to get that sample right, because they never made a hat with like the deployable detachable tape and the ponytail gates and the wire and the brim. It took several samples to get that right, but once I did, I think it's going to be well worth it, because it'll be a cheaper price for me, a cheaper price for the customer and the backer, and it'll be easier for me to communicate directly with the factory about any problems, any defects, or anything like that. And also, the Indian people are not systematically, incarcerating their Muslim population, which the Chinese are doing with the Uyghurs. And I mean, I don't want to get political. Being political on anything is very divisive. And to any Chinese people watching, I think your country is great. I love the Chinese people. I spent a lot of time there. Many great people in China. I made a lot of lifelong friendships when I was there. But what the government is doing to the Uyghurs, I don't support it. And so I can't put my money there anymore. So
Yeah.
that's a very long answer to your quick question about what.
No, if you want to touch a little bit more on the factory, I did notice that you kind of went in detail a little bit about the colors of the hats and how like there's minimum order quantities of them. And we noticed that like the first 8 have a 500, but then to make a khaki one, there was a 5,000 minimum order quantity. And so like, did the factory provide like a reason behind the 5,000 minimum order?
Yeah, this is a don't shoot the messenger situation. Like I'm just a messenger for the factory saying, this factory has made a lot of hats, and those I call them the hateful 8 because they seem to be 8 colors that aren't very popular. Although I think a lot of people like the red and the black and the white, obviously. I think a lot of people will like a lot of the colors, but khaki was the biggest. If you think of sun hat, khaki's got to be in it. I agree. I really wanted to make a khaki one. They don't normally make sun hats, their hats in any khaki colors. It's not very popular in India. India people actually dress very colorfully, especially the women. They're very bright, very loud, bright colors. And khaki is anything but a loud, bright color.
Yeah.
Blues, a lot of reds, a lot of whites and blacks, just very drastic colors. So because khaki is just kind of a light mud color, basically, it's not very popular in India. So they don't have it on hand. So if they do make that, they have to order a lot of material that they don't have on hand. They have these other 8 colors on hand, ready to go at a moment's notice, and they only need a minimum quantity to make it worth their time to cut it all up and to process it. The 5,000 for khaki is because they don't have any khaki material there at all. So they would have to order that from another supplier and bring that into their factory and then use that. So it's kind of like, if it's not on their shelf, they've got to go get a whole stock of it. They got to make it worth their while to go do all that. And they got to make some money too. And I want them to make money. I don't want them to, I'm not trying to skin anybody here, not the factory, not the backer. I want everybody to, a rising tide raises all boats. I want all the boats to go up here. So they, I hated to tell backers that, but I'm getting so many. The campaign is going so successfully right now. Right now, I'd say I'm 90% sure I can do khaki. I'd like to also do a green color because that seems to be the second most popular color that's not in the hateful 8. That is not available. And I would also need a 5,000. And unless I get a huge spike at the end, I don't think olive greens. If I did a green, it would be olive green as opposed to dark. I think dark forest green would look great, but I think more people are interested in olive green. I don't think I'll be able to swing that, unfortunately. And if it's a deal breaker for some people, maybe that's why I've got some pledge cancellations because they realize their color choice isn't in the hat. That's fine. I'd rather them pledge knowing they're getting exactly what they want than settling for something that's kind of, if color is important, but if color is not that important to you, then swallow your pride and just get something that you normally wouldn't wear because the hat, whatever color it is great. But if color is one of your main priorities and your color is not there, then there's nothing I can do about it. I'd rather you cancel now than get the hat and be disappointed when you look in the mirror. I want to make everybody that backs me very happy they did and very eager to back me on whatever new project I put forward in the future. So
awesome.
Does that make sense? 5,000 minimum order quantity.
Yeah, that definitely clears a lot of things up. I think for a lot of people,
I tried to put that in a update to my backers about why I had to, and I'm still waiting to hear back from my factory in India to give me actual swatches that I'm then going to, send to my backers. I'm going to do a Google survey and see who likes which color the most. And the winner will be the one. I can't make 4 shades of khaki, unfortunately. I can't even make 2 shades of khaki. I'm going to make one that's the most popular. I think it's going to be a cross between, if you see my Shapeflexer colors, I had a dark khaki and a light khaki. I think the one I come up with is going to be a combination between those two. I want to be dark enough but light enough. You can't please all people, but one color is going to win, and that's the one I'll produce. But I'm still waiting for the swatches. Thankfully, we've got lots of time because the campaign still has over a month left. So, but that reminds me that when I'm off the phone today, I've got to contact my factory. Hey, what's going on with those swatches? They said, we'll get them to you when we can. Our factory, the one they're buying the material from, the fabric from, it's dragging their feet getting them the swatches. So I got to light a fire to them so they can light a fire to the factory. They get the swatches. It's a process. So
awesome. So what would you say so far is the biggest challenge you faced, and overcame for the hats, like either design or manufacture or the actual Kickstarter campaign itself? Like, what would you say is the biggest challenge?
The biggest challenge was what we discussed earlier. It was getting a hat light to be that durable, rigid, and wind resistant. I didn't even know if it was possible. I had other things I was kicking around in my head trying to think of other ways that I could make it more stiff and lighter. And still, I mean, you can make it stiff and light, but it's not going to be bendable. You know, it could be some sort of material that's really brittle, like a graphite, you know, and
Yeah.
it's going to snap. So I'd have it bendable, shapeable, foldable, packable, and lightweight and wind resistant. That was a huge challenge. And spending all that time, sometime when I was in India, it was getting drenched by rain, and you know my phone would be wet, and I'd have to dry it out in a bowl of rice. And I'd just be thinking, what am I doing here? Is this even going to be worth it? Jeez, I've already got my first hat, you know, did well, the Kickstarters, but you know, the website. I had a big double 1-2 punch when I had the melanoma, the skin cancer, and then COVID hit right after that. That almost put my business completely out of business. This was going to be right before I got the cancer, I was already thinking about a new hat that golfers would like. And then that later became the Fairway. But I always said, if I ever recover from this cancer, if the world ever recovers from COVID, I'm going to make the best flipping sun hat that anyone's ever seen. And that's what hopefully I did.
Awesome. Yeah. At least I think so. Best one I've seen yet anyway.
Yeah. Well, I hope, I'm 95% sure you'll think so once you hold it in your hands and feel it on your head. I want everyone to I know it'll look great, and that was the purpose of the crowdfunding campaign, but I wanted everyone, I was so happy to get the comments back on the first Shapeflexer campaign, like, hey, I love the way the hat feels. It's so cool. I don't want to take it off. My wife stole it. I'll never see it again, so I got to order another one. You know, all that sort of stuff makes me feel really good. And I'm hoping I get a lot of that. I think I'll get a lot more of that with this one too.
Awesome. Are there like any people or organizations that you would like to acknowledge for like their help in bringing this hat campaign to life?
My backers.
Yeah.
My backers for the first 2 campaigns, this was all because of, if any of you guys are watching, this is because of you that I'm doing this. And I didn't thank you as much in the video as I wanted to, but I just cut that. I had a bit about thanking the backers specifically in my video, but I had to cut it for time. I'm already talking like even faster than normal doing the video. It's way too, you know, like micro machines, like that. Yeah. It's you guys made all this possible, and it's only because you told me you liked the hat. You backed me in the first place. You could chance me once, maybe twice, maybe with campaign 1, maybe with 2, maybe with just 2, maybe just with 1, because you told me that there were people out there that wanted a better sun hat, that the stuff on the market was not up to your specs, and people had just been, you know, they thought good enough was good enough with sun hats, and sun protection is so important. And yeah, my backers, that's really who I've got to thank more than anybody. If it wasn't for my faith in them and their faith in me, I would not be, this third campaign never would have happened. None of the second and third campaign. The first campaign would have happened, I would have gotten no backers, and I was like, well, that was a massive waste of time. I guess I'm going to go work for Amazon or go back to work in Antarctica like I used to, or, you know, whatever. But the backers took a chance on me, and I'm going to do all my power to not make them regret it. I'm going to do all my power to not make you regret it, backers.
Awesome. So like just a touch really quick, what do you envision the future of Shapeflexer hats? Like what's on the horizon? You give us a little snippet.
Well, once this crowdfunding campaign is over, I want to put these on my website. I'm still not sure if I'm going to do a separate website for the Fairway and a separate one for the Shapeflexer, or change the name of the website to shapeflexer/fairway.com, since they are different hats. I don't want people to be looking for the Fairway. I'm looking for the Fairway sun hat. What's this Shapeflexer crap? I can't find it. It doesn't exist. So I'm going to go buy a Tilly, and I'll think, no, wait, come back. So I've got to try to integrate the new product in with the old product, a new website with the old website, and try to make it. I've realized I'm much better at Kickstarter campaigns than I am at running a business, running an online store. I'm not very good at it, and I'll be the first to admit it. And I would love I would love to get on a Shark Tank someday and have like, or even something like that, just have a partner who actually knows what they're doing. If anybody knows anybody that knows how to run a business, just doesn't know how to come up with the product and the advertising for it, which I'm really good at, that's, is better with overall marketing and dealing with Instagram influencers, or you dealing with Instagram at all to build a business. I am clueless with all of that. So I definitely need help with all of that if I'm going to make this a normal household product and keep building the brand. That's what I want to do. But getting a Shark Tank is a dream, but you're just as likely to win Powerball as you already get up. In fact, after my first sun hat, I did hear from they say that they were a producer, but I think they were kind of a lower rung producer from Shark Tank that said, hey, I love your product. I want you to do a video, blah, blah, blah. Send it here, send it there. So I did it. This was back in 2019, early 2019, about 6 months before I got the cancer, that I sent the video, did a mountain of paperwork for them, talking about numbers and what I was expecting, what I wanted, and sent them a bunch of samples. And then she sent back a message back a few months later, said, yeah, they're going to pass. So I was a little disappointed because, you think Shark Tank, this would be a great Shark Tank. And I'm sure I would be vivacious enough, hopefully not crazy enough, but, enough to get on the show and have a product and a pitch and back numbers to back it up to get one of those guys to back me. But even if it's not on Shark Tank, there are other venture capitalists that are looking for other businesses to get into. And I would love to have somebody that really knows what they're doing to partner with. That would be the golden key. And then I can keep bringing out more products. And I'd like to have, as I was talking before about the hat not being totally waterproof, I'm adding as an add-on these plastic waterproof covers. It's one of these add-ons that came with, depending on when you backed an early bird campaign or when the campaign's over, it's going to be available as an add-on that you can get.
Okay.
That, the mosquito net, and the sunglasses, they're all going to be available as add-ons. And then that will definitely change your sun hat instantly into a rain hat, because then you can stand under water and your head and neck will stay dry. So
awesome. Yeah, there you go.
Did I answer your original question? Like I said, I've gone on so many tangents, so I'm sorry about that, man.
Yeah, no, I was just asking what was next, like, do you have plans for another hat, or is, like, you're just worried about producing this one at this point?
No, producing this one at this point. What's going to be immediately on the horizon is once the campaign's over, I'm going back to India. I know I'm going to have to be there. We've got to do a thing. There's a few things in the original sample that they didn't do just perfectly that I know they can do better on. And I'm going to be there breathing down their necks. They're in a little town called Jalandhar. It's not a very nice place, but I have no problem staying there and, breathing down the factory's neck, looking at samples. I'm waiting there for another month if I have to until I get the production sample just perfect. And they'll say, okay, make me 10,000 of these or however many we need. But it has to be exactly like this. I'm going to keep this one to compare with all of the ones you make. And if anything's like this, that's not like those, I'm going to say start the whole thing over. Like they're going to know how strict I am. That's why I dealt with this factory. This factory seems very professional and very used to it. And I think that they'll be very receptive to that. So yeah, that's what immediately next on the horizon is going there. And I'm not going to be able to rush them. I know people will want these hats a little earlier. I was hoping to get them to people by Christmas, but even if I ship things by air, like for maybe 100 hats by air to some people that are just desperate to have it by Christmas, I don't think they'll be here any earlier than March, honestly, or even maybe February, but definitely not by Christmas. So, but yes, going to India, staying there, I may have to stay there another 3 months, who knows, but I'm going to stay there until this thing's perfect, because way too many people have put their trust in me. And I'll say, for me to just think like, oh, it'll be fine, I'll do the order, it'll be okay, it's on autopilot. No, I've got to be very hands-on, very in the weeds, in the trenches, at the factory. I did the same thing in China, and it'll be much easier to do in India because I'll be dealing directly with the factory as opposed to a middleman from the middleman company going with me to the factory, and we go together, and there's some translation difficulties and cultural problems. I'll be dealing directly with the factory this time, and so that way I'll be able to get the hats made perfectly.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I think that you having so much, personally watching over the campaign gives the backers a lot of, like reassurance that they're going to get a quality product. It may not be super soon, but at least it will be of great quality. So
Yes.
I think they'll be fun to hear that.
I've seen this thing once at a place I got my hair cut once. They said if it's going to be cheap, fast, and good, it can't be all three. If it's cheap,
Yep.
it's cheap and fast, it's not going to be good. If it's fast and good, it's not going to be cheap. Or, but so this is going to be, I don't want to say cheap because that makes it sound like it's an inferior product. It's inexpensive. It's going to be inexpensive and quality, but it's not going to be fast. Not this first time anyway, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, I think the price is definitely very reasonable. Awesome. So yeah, if you just want to wrap things up here for the last little bit, I have a few like personal questions that I think that some of the backers might find really interesting.
Sure,
and that the first one is how did your own experience as an adventurer inspire the creation of the Shapeflexer sun hats? Because we did read a little bit about your bio, and you have a very colorful background.
Yeah, well, some people get addicted to vices when they're young. Maybe it's weed, maybe it's alcohol, maybe it's philandering. I don't know, but I mean, I'm not doubting anybody. My big vice was travel. I got addicted to it. I couldn't stop. I first went to Europe when I was right after college graduation, 22 years old, and I never felt so alive, so happy. So that's a whole other story. But basically, let's just say I got addicted to traveling. So I worked abroad. I worked in Ireland, worked in Australia, worked in New Zealand, and then I got a job in Antarctica working there. And when getting a job in Antarctica is giving a travel addict is like giving heroin to a heroin junkie. Like it just makes it worse because you can work there for 6 months, take 6 months off, work there for 6 months, take 6 months off. And during those 6 months off, you're not going to go home and get a Joe job. You got plenty of money. You're going to go travel and explore. That's what I did. And I having the fair skin I do, being all my relatives are Norwegian, so it's about as fair as you can get. And there has been other types of cancer in my family. I knew sun protection was important. And also, I don't want to age any faster than I already am. I mean, I'm already no spring chicken. So times doing just a fine job aging me, I don't need the sun to help it. So I was always trying to wear a sun hat. At least from the first 2 years, I did not wear a sun hat. And I just thought it was invincible. And sometimes I didn't even wear sunscreen. It was really stupid. And I ended up paying for it later. It probably had something to do with my melanoma later. So anyway, when I started traveling with the sun hat, I was very happy to have it with me all the time. But the first time it got wet, the very first one I had was in Australia. I was in a rainstorm, a freak rainstorm. I was hiking on this multi-day trek by myself, and I just got drenched. I was in the Northern Territory, and the wet season was just coming on, and I got drenched. And then the hat went from nice and straight, like I bought at the store, to like being floppy and mushy and crappy. And I even tried to iron it, but it was never the same again. And that started a long line of me buying a new flippin' sun hat every few weeks or every few months, depending on how much I was using it. And I got so sick of doing that. So then, and this is in between all the traveling, my time in Antarctica. I'm in New Zealand a lot of the time too. In New Zealand, there's a lot of hiking. They call it tramping on the North and South Islands. A lot of great things to do. I wore a sun hat there constantly. And there is where I first hand-stitched a copper cable into an REI hat that I bought. I hand-stitched the copper cable into it, and I was like, wow, this works really well. And I can fold it and put it in my bag. I never thought about making a business out of it until a lot of other trekkers were saying, hey, Damien, where'd you get that sun hat? I want to get one like it. I said, actually, I made it myself, and it took me several days, so I can make one for you, but I have to charge you about $300 for it for my time, so I don't think you're going to want to spend that. Oh, yeah, never mind. I'll just deal with this one. I thought, that's where the light bulb went on. Maybe I can make a business out of this. Maybe there is a demand for a sun hat that isn't made for obsolescence, isn't made to just turn to crap after a couple of months, after a couple of vacations, after a couple of washes, after one wash, one rainstorm. It's even if it can be packed after packing it wrong. If you fold it, and it's packed in your suitcase and you open it up when you get to your destination, you're never the same. It's creased. The creases never come out. So that's why I thought, I think a sun hat can be better than this, and I've got to find a way that I can mass produce. So that's when I came up with the very first Shapeflexer, and evidently there was the demand for it. My hunch was right, and it was more than right. I was overwhelmed by the positive support I got for the first one. So after all the adventuring and also the hiking and trekking I did in Colorado, when you're above 12,000, 13,000 feet, the sun is super intense. I think for every 1,000 feet you go up in elevation from sea level, the sun's power increases by 20% or something like that. And that's just an exponential rise. So when you get up to like 14,000 feet, and also I was hiking that high in India and Nepal and other places, you really got to watch. I love being in the high country. I'm not much of a beach person, but I'm a total mountain goat, and I love being in the mountains. There, you really have to protect yourself from the sun because it's very powerful there. Even though you might not, it's a little bit deceiving because you got that nice, cool mountain breeze. Your face isn't feeling hot like it does on the beach or the desert, but you're slowly sizzling and you don't realize it. And then you come back and like, how do I look like a tomato? When the day's over, when you didn't give yourself enough sun protection, and then the sunscreen always drip into my eyes and it would sting like crazy from sweating. Like, oh God, there's got to be a better way. I sound like an infomercial now, but really, like that's. And then I started wearing sun hats while trekking, and I'm happy I did it. But none of them worked well either. None of the sun hats while hiking 14 years in Colorado worked. None of the sun hats while traveling abroad worked very well. So I decided I'm going to make a new one, and maybe other people will like it. And I'm really happy they did. And this one, I'm just trying to improve.
Awesome. So you mentioned Antarctica. I read a little bit on your bio, and it said that you had spent 4 years in Antarctica, well, in and out of Antarctica. But the question we had was like, if you could explain like some of the most profound or surreal memories that you had like while you were there, because I think there's not a lot of people who've spent a lot of time in Antarctica, and so I thought this was a really interesting opportunity to kind of ask you like, if you have like maybe one thing that you think was surreal or profound that you could share.
No one. There's because it's not a peak. This is kind of a plateau we're talking about because there's a lot of little ones. Yeah. But off the top of my head, it would be seeing the auroras so bright down there and moving around like curtains in the heavens. It was just amazing. I've never seen auroras like that. The closer you are to either pole, north or south, it's just fantastic. It just made me feel like when you're isolated and you're spending a winter in Antarctica and you have darkness 24 hours a day for several months, it kind of starts to drain your soul a little bit. You even get a hyper person like me, a relatively cheerful person like me, down a little bit, like the winter blues, they call it. But then when I saw that aurora, it just like flipped my switch back on, like, wow. And then that was at McMurdo Station. The other one was at the South Pole Station. Going outside after being dark 24 hours a day for a couple months, it was the austral winter. I mean, it was sometime in May, late May. I went outside during the full moon, and the full moon made everything so bright. It was almost like the sun was back in the sky. Like it was casting shadows, and I didn't need my flashlight to walk around outside. It was like, this is great. This is like, it's like the sun back up. Hey, I should get my sunglasses on. I'll have a beach party out here. Frostbite. That was surreal too, seeing the moon be so bright because your eyes are so used to outside being pitch black that when you get that full moon, it provides so much light that it was casting shadows and it didn't cause the need for a flashlight.
Wow,
those
that's
are
amazing
real moments that I had when I was down there that are off the top of my head.
Yeah, that's awesome. I would love to go to Antarctica. That's definitely on the bucket list. I know a whole lot of people don't go there, and it's quite difficult to actually go there. But
unless you're a crazy person who wants to work there, or a multi-millionaire that can afford a cruise for 30 days, that's $30,000.
Exactly.
It's not hard, really, but I'm very happy I made it. In fact, one of my goals in life is to make it down there as a tourist. I'd love to have enough money to go there as a tourist and not go down there for work, just so I could enjoy from morning till night where I am, because sometimes you work so much, you get so stressed out about things. It's still everyday life. You got relationships, you got bosses who don't like you, you got friends you're having fights with, stress from back home, things happen in your family. Life still goes on down there, but trying to get away from that for a moment and appreciating where you are and just taking it in, letting it wash over you is really an amazing thing. And hopefully I'd like to be able to do that someday without going down there for work. So we'll see if that happens or not.
All right. And then we just had one last question. and that is, with your wealth and experience across the globe, are there any life lessons or mottos that you've adopted that you'd like to share?
I can't think of any that don't already sound like trite platitudes that you've heard a million times before, but I guess one of the things is it ain't over till the fat lady sings. I'm not fat shaming anybody. I mean, I used to be overweight myself when I was all the way until college. I was a chubby little sucker. So, but it ain't over as long as you draw breath and as long as your heart's beating. Don't quit. I mean, that's what my motto when I was fighting cancer. That was my motto when the chips seemed to be down for my business. And I just thought, oh, this is a waste of time. I'm going to do something else with my life. People might like my Kickstarter, but I'm going to keep looking for other partners to work with. And I'm going to keep fighting maintaining a positive mental attitude and not giving up on the things that are important in your life, whether it's starting your own business, surviving something, a terrible tragedy. As Tom Hanks said at the end of Castaway, the sun will rise, whether you're there or not. I mean, unless I guess 3 billion years, the sun's going to burn out, but we don't have to worry about that. Just don't give up. I mean, that sounds really, I wish I had better words of wisdom. Yeah. And another quick thing, don't look down on somebody unless you're trying to help them up. I think Jesse said that. I've always liked that. So that's one you probably don't hear as often. So I'll throw that in there too.
Yeah, I like that one. That one's really good. So yeah, I think we're going to wrap up the recording here. And thank you very much for your time, Damien. I think you shared a lot about the product and about yourself, and we're really grateful.
I'm sorry in advance to whoever has to edit this because I know I'm talking really fast, but I hope there's a lot in there that you can pick out of. I kind of gave you a shotgun of information. Hope you can pick out some good stuff to make a relatively cohesive and somewhat interesting interview. I don't know. I
think you did. I think you did. Because you could have gave us one-word responses, but that wouldn't have been very great, would it?
That's not my style at all.
Awesome. So it was great talking to you, Damien. Thank you very much.
Likewise. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.